We will now begin the second lecture on the book of Deuteronomy. We will begin from Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 29. After the Exodus, the Israelites received the law in Mount Sinai. They stayed there for over a year. After they left Mount Sinai, it took 11 days to reach Kadesh Barnea. They sent 12 spies from Kadesh Barnea, and among them were Joshua and Caleb. The two men proclaimed to the people of Israel, saying, "Let's invade the land of Canaan." However, the other 10 spies proclaimed to the people, "It is impossible to enter Canaan." Thus, the people of Israel listened to the 10 spies. They leaned towards unfaithfulness to God. Read verse 29. "Then I said to you, do not be terrified, do not be afraid of them." Here we can see Moses confronting the people of Israel. He said, "Do not be terrified." He said that God is with them. God promised to give the Israelites the land of Canaan. Let's examine the confrontation of Moses. Verse 30. "The Lord your God, who is going before you, will fight for you as he did for you in Egypt." First, Moses said that God will fight for you, as God did after redeeming the Israelites from Egypt. He is saying that the God who guided the Israelites to freedom from captivity in Egypt will continue his guidance. At the time of the Exodus, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was extremely powerful. Yet, in the midst of his power, God redeemed the people of Israel. The Israelites were able to cross the Red Sea with the help from God. Thus, Moses is saying that even if the enemies in the land of Canaan are extremely powerful, they can be defeated if God helps and fights with the people of Israel. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. Verse 31. "And in the desert, there you saw how the Lord your God carried you." Moses is saying that God continues to show his guidance as he guided the people in the wilderness. Second, Moses' confrontation contains the message that as a man embraces his son, God will embrace the people of Israel. It means that God will protect Israel. Chapter 32, verse 11. As the eagle carries its baby on her back, God does the same. Moses is saying that God has guided his people up until now. 1 Chronicles chapter 17, verse 6. 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 21. Verse 12. As such, God guides our ways by staying in front of us. He embraces us. God has guided every direction in our lives. Therefore, God will continue to guide us in the future. Verse 32. In spite of this, you did not trust the Lord your God. However, the people of Israel did not listen to the confrontation of Moses. Also, they did not trust God. They disobeyed the words of God. Verse 33. Who went ahead of you on your journey? Third, in the confrontation of Moses, he is saying that God is the God who goes ahead of them and searches out the places for them to camp in. The directions of our lives are unclear, yet God goes ahead of us and He leads us to the necessary places, the good places. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4. Next, Moses' fourth confrontation was that God is the God who led them by fire by night and clouds by day. Because it was hot during the day, God cooled down the people of Israel by sending pillars of clouds. Because it was cold at night, God kept His people warm by sending pillars of fire. Even today, God protects and leads us. The pillars of fire and cloud refer to the presence of God. It refers to the guidance of God as well. It refers to the protection of God. The pillars of fire refer to the truth, the Word of God. The pillars of clouds refer to the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. John chapter 4, verse 24. God confronted the people of Israel through the lips of Moses. Through Joshua and Caleb, God confronted the people of Israel. However, the people of Israel did not listen to the words of these faithful men. They refused to listen to the words of Moses. They refused to listen to the words of Joshua and Caleb. On the contrary, they continued to fear the Canaanites. Then they were disheartened. Verse 34. When the Lord heard what you said, He was angry and solemnly swore. God was angry when He heard the words of the faithless people of Israel. They walked the path of unfaithfulness. Hence, God became angry with them. Verses 35 through 36. Not a man of this evil generation shall see the good land I swore to give your forefathers, except Caleb son of Jephunneh. The people of that generation, the people who experienced the Exodus, were subject to fall in the wilderness. This meant that they would not step on the good land of Canaan. However, Joshua and Caleb wholeheartedly obeyed the words of God. Therefore, God allowed Joshua and Caleb to enter the land of Canaan. The faith of Joshua and Caleb is portrayed in chapter 14 of the book of Numbers. It is in Numbers chapter 14. Joshua and Caleb trusted the promise of God. Exodus chapter 6, verse 8. They believed in the power of God. They did not fear. They believed that God would be with them. They also had a positive mindset. They were thankful and thought of the good things in the land of Canaan. They looked at the land of Canaan with faith. Even if we are powerless and weak, the power of God is infinite. That's why Joshua and Caleb proclaimed to the people of Israel, "Let us invade the land of Canaan." Joshua and Caleb believed in the authority of God. They trusted the promise of God. They believed in the power of God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Verse 37. Because of you, the Lord became angry with me also. Due to the faults of the people of Israel, God became angry with Moses. At the time, the people of Israel walked the path of disbelief. Thus, Moses became angry and made a mistake. Numbers chapter 20, verses 10 through 22. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 51. This is mentioned in chapter 3, verse 26 as well. Also in chapter 4, verse 21. Verse 38. But your assistant, Joshua, son of Nun, will enter it. Joshua was able to enter the land of Canaan. Who else entered the land of Canaan? Those who were less than 20 years old during the Exodus, Joshua and Caleb, and those who were born in the wilderness. These people all entered the land of Canaan. Verse 40. But as for you, turn around and set out toward the desert. God commanded them to turn around. Because the Israelites did not believe that they would enter the land of Canaan, God did not permit them the land of Canaan and commanded them to turn around. Read verse 41. Then you replied, "We have sinned against the Lord." When God commanded them not to enter the land of Canaan, they said, "We will enter," or "We will go up." When God commanded them to go up, they refused to go up. And when God commanded them not to go up, they said they would. As such, the people of Israel were disobedient. Read verse 42. But the Lord said to me, "Tell them, do not go up and fight, because I will not be with you." If we disobey the commands of God, to not go up, we will surely be defeated. The people of Israel refused to listen to the commands of God and invaded the land of Canaan and were defeated. God did not help them. Thus, they were chased out by the Canaanites. In verse 44, it says that they were chased to the southern region of Hormah. This place, Hormah, is located 12 kilometers away from the east side of Beersheba. Verse 46, and so you stayed in Kadesh many days. If God does not help us, we are destined to fail no matter what. That is why the people of Israel stayed in Kadesh for many days. They were not able to enter the land of Canaan due to their disobedience. However, Joshua and Caleb believed and obeyed the words of God and were able to enter the land of Canaan. As such, we must believe and obey the promises of God just as Joshua and Caleb did. We will continue the lecture with the second chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. The title of the chapter is Sihon. Sihon. It refers to Sihon, the king of Heshbon. First, the Israelites make their way around the hill country of Seir for a long period of time. Verses 1 through 3. Second, in order not to provoke the Edomites to war. Verses 4 through 7. Third, in order not to provoke the Moabites to war. Verses 8 through 12. Fourth, a reminder how every Israelite who came out of Egypt have died. Verses 13 through 15. Fifth, in order to not harass or provoke the Ammonites to war. Verses 16 through 23. Sixth, conquering the king of Heshbon, Sihon, and taking over all his country. Verses 24 through 36 and 37. Read verse 1. When we turned back and set out toward the desert along the route to the Red Sea. Due to their disobedience in Kadesh Barnea, the people of Israel had to live in the wilderness. They lived and made their way around the hill country of Seir along the route to the Red Sea. If we look at verse 4, it says that they made their way around for 38 years. They lived in the wilderness for a very long period of time. God guided them with pillars of cloud and fire. Still, why did God make the people of Israel live in the wilderness for 40 years? In chapter 8, verse 16, it says that God wanted to humble and to test you so that in the end it might go well with you. God wanted to teach perseverance and train the people of Israel. Verses 2 through 3. Then the Lord said to me, "You have made your way around this hill country long enough." They made their way around the hill country, Seir, for 38 years. Therefore, God commanded them to turn back their ways and go up to the north. Verse 4. Give the people these orders. You are about to pass through the territory of your brothers, the descendants of Esau. God commanded the people of Israel not to conquer the territories of the descendants of Esau, who lived in the hill country of Seir. This place, the hill country of Seir, was given to the descendants of Esau, who are the Edomites. Genesis chapter 36, verse 8. God commanded them to pay the price for food and water as they passed through the territory. God commanded them to walk through the wide paths. That is, God commanded them not to harass the people of Edom. It was because God gave the hill country of Seir to the descendants of Esau. Of course, the people of Israel were capable of conquering Seir. However, they passed through because God did not permit them to conquer the land. Verse 7. The Lord your God has blessed you in all the works of your hands. While the people of Israel were living in the wilderness, God sufficiently provided for them. They were given manna as food. They were provided with water from rocks. As such, it is enough to eat and possess only as much as God tells us. We must not eat everything simply because we can. We should not take everything simply because we are capable to do so. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. It is sufficient to only take what God has permitted or has given to us. We should not be greedy and try to take things that are not permitted by God. Verse 8. So we went on past our brothers, the descendants of Esau, who lived in Seir. Now they went past the hill country of Seir and turned to the Arabah road, which comes up from Elath and Ezion-Geber. Then afterwards they traveled along the land of Moab. Verse 9. Then the Lord said to me, "Do not harass the Moabites or provoke them to war." While they were passing by the land of Moab, God commanded them not to harass or provoke the Moabites. God commanded the people of Israel to not conquer the land. They were commanded to eat and drink by paying silver to the Moabites. The reason for such a commandment was that God had given the land of Moab to the descendants of Lot. God gave the land of Moab to the descendants of Lot. The people of Israel were capable and were skillful enough to conquer the land of Moab. However, because God did not permit such actions, they simply went past the land. In the land of the Moabites, the Emites had originally lived there. The Emites mentioned in verse 10. However, God gave power to the Moabites, and they were able to defeat the Emites. If God permits it, even we can defeat a powerful person or a nation. Verse 12. Horites used to live in Seir, but the descendants of Esau drove them out. The Horites originally resided in the hill country of Seir. They were powerful, tall, and strong. However, at that time, the descendants of Esau invaded the land and defeated the Horites. As such, if God allows it, even the strongest nation can be defeated. This story was told to inform the Israelites that no matter how strong the Canaanites may be, the land of Canaan can be defeated if God permits it. Verse 13. And the Lord said, Now get up and cross the Zered Valley. The Zered Valley is along the borders that divide the lands of Edom and Moab. All the soldiers in that generation were above 20 years of age during the second census. The first census was completed after the Exodus. Exodus chapter 30, verse 12. The second census is mentioned in Numbers chapter 1, verse 3, chapter 14, verse 29. All the people who were in the first census had died. However, the people who were in the second census were able to enter the land of Canaan. Verse 16. Now when the last of these fighting men among the people had died. Verses 17 through 19. The Lord said to me, Today you are to pass by the region of Moab at Ar. When you come to the Ammonites, do not harass them or provoke them to war. The Israelites were now about to pass through the land of the Ammonites. However, at that time, God commanded them to just pass by the land of the Ammonites. They were given the command not to conquer the land of the Ammonites. Since the Ammonites were descendants of Lot as well, such a command was given. Genesis chapter 19, verses 36 through 38. As such, the Ammonites and Moabites are both descendants of Lot. God promised to give that land to the descendants of Lot. The descendants of Lot were depraved and unfaithful. Their faith was not cohesive with traditions. Nevertheless, God provided them with the land. Verse 20. That too was considered a land of the Rephaites. Before the Ammonites lived in that land, the Rephaites used to live there. These people were great in size. Still, the Ammonites invaded and conquered the land of the Rephaites. In the same way, if we obey the commandments of God, and with the permission of God, we can defeat a man however strong he may be. Verse 23. And as for the Avites who lived in villages as far as Gaza, the Castorites here refers to the people of Philistine. The Philistine people were able to destroy the Avites and conquer their land. Verse 24. Set out now and cross the Arnon Gorge. Here from verses 24 through 37, Sihon, the king of Heshbon, is described. The people of Israel defeated Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and took over his towns. Sihon, the king of Heshbon, was the king of a very powerful nation. However, God permitted that land to the people of Israel. Verse 26. From the desert of Kedemoth I sent messengers to Sihon, king of Heshbon, offering peace and saying, At first Moses offered peaceful messages to Sihon, the king of Heshbon. Moses gave messages saying, Let us pass through your country. We will stay on the main road. We will not turn aside to the right or to the left. Sell us food to eat and water to drink for their price in silver. However, the king of Heshbon declined the peace offering and desired to fight the Israelites. Verse 30. For the Lord your God had made his spirit stubborn. God planned to give that land to the people of Israel. Thus, God made the heart of Sihon obstinate. Due to his unyielding heart, he and his people came to battle the Israelites. God used the people of Israel to defeat these stubborn people. People with such obstinate hearts are predestined to be destroyed by God. People who disturb the plan of salvation of God are all predestined to be ruined. However, the meek and humble who take part in the plan of salvation of God are predestined to be blessed. God helps those people. God protects them. Thus the people of Israel were in battle with Sihon. Verse 31. The Lord said to me, See, I have begun to deliver Sihon and his country over to you. God said to deliver the land of Sihon, the king of Heshbon, to the people of Israel. He said, Begin to conquer and possess his land. Verse 33. The Lord our God delivered him over to us, and we struck him down. The Israelites struck down the people of Heshbon. Then they were able to conquer the land. Verse 36. From Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the gorge, even as far as Gilead. By defeating the king of Heshbon, the people of Israel were able to possess the Arnon Gorge. They now possessed land as far as the Gilead. Verse 37. But in accordance with the command of the Lord our God, you did not encroach on any of the land of the Ammonites. The people of Israel did not conquer the lands which they were not permitted by God, which were the lands of the Ammonites and Moabites. They only conquered the lands that were permitted by God. As such, if God permits us to do something, and if we fight with the power God provides us, we can defeat all our enemies. Regardless of the number and strength of our enemies, we can still defeat them with the power of God. Then, when we defeat them, we can possess their lands. Therefore, we must defeat everyone whom God has given to us according to our faith. We must overcome our families by faith. Whomever we meet, we must overcome them by faith. We must overcome while we obey the word of God. We must overcome by walking in truth, by loving, by persevering, and by walking according to the will of God. Then that land becomes our land. It glorifies God. We must obey the commands of God and conquer the land which God plans to give us. In the passages we have discussed today, the people of Israel did not conquer the lands of Seir, Moab, and Ammon. These three lands were not conquered by the people of Israel. God did not allow it. Instead, God allowed the land of Sihon, the king of Heshbon. Here we can see that whatever God does not allow us to take, we must simply leave it. We must take whatever God commands us to take. Then we will receive all the blessings which God intends to give us. Here we will conclude the second lecture on the book of Deuteronomy. Thank you.